All in favor?
Turn it off. You gotta watch it.
Corey's already called him with
Just put a sign or something that says, check the front of the door and say.
I will call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge, please. Deputy Chief, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I will. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment, please. Heavenly Father, tonight we dedicate this council meeting in memory of Al Pack, the grandfather of our street department superintendent, Mr. Jason Fravel. If you were ever a fan of the TV show Hee Haw or a country music fan, Jason's grandfather, Mr. Pack, was certainly known around town as the Roy Clark of Pataskal. His mandolin playing was indeed legendary. And Lord, we also ask tonight that you give us the strength and wisdom to do your will, and we ask for all this in your holy name. Amen. All right, Kathy, roll please.
Carter. Here. Walter.
Here.
Howe.
Here.
Barstow.
Here.
Hayes. Here. Pickens. Lee.
Here. Where's Mr. Hickman? Okay. All right. Could you say here, please?
Here, please.
Okay. We have a quorum present. And filling in for Mr. Zetz tonight is Mr. David Mosier. Glad to have you, David.
Thanks for having me.
It was July 4th the last time we saw you, I think?
4th of July.
July 4th week. Okay, very good. Let's see, we're going to move on to citizens' comments, and normally when we have some other issues under citizens' comments, we go to those first, but these might take a while tonight, so if there's any citizens who wish to speak, I'm going to start with them first before we go to the interviews. Mr. Fox? Name and address, please, and
Mike
you have
Fox,
5 minutes.
11540 Broad Street, Pataskal, Ohio 43062. I actually am coming to council to give you a little bit of an update on the sewer and water district. We purchased a 24-acre lot today south of Route 40 near Wagram for an additional sewer plant. We've been working on it for about a year and a half now. We finally came to an agreement. I go and do the closing on Thursday. It's gonna open up an awful lot of area in the eastern part, or western part of the city, and in the western part of Etna Township, all the way to Reynoldsburg. I was contacted by a couple developers for the sewer and water. Myself and our general manager attended a meeting with Mr. Emswaller, a couple developers, a couple sales agents, to talk about the PM district. I believe some people have heard about this, but it's now, they were looking for sewer, and it came to my attention for the first time that the PM district is not exactly what we thought it was as far as being capable and ready for sewer in the center of the district. The JRS site originally is required to have sewer, and it does, but it has it on the very far western end. So as people want to develop along Red Chip Lane, they're looking at a 7,000 foot plus high pressure sewer. We had some discussions. Ultimately, the answer to it is that everybody involved, the schools, the city, and this is my opinion, the county, the developer, the owners, everybody's gonna have to belly up. It's gonna cost a couple $1 million, close to a couple $1 million, to ultimately get that site to where people can walk in and develop it. So that's something that needs to be addressed soon in the future. But as an outcome of those meetings, we were asked by the developer that wants 4 sites for 4 spec buildings, whether we could provide them with sewer. The district, the general manager, and a board member sat down, went through all of everything that they could possibly go through, and determined that the one line that we had available that went to AEP it doesn't have enough capacity. So the district determined that we would go ahead and provide them with a letter enabling them to put in their own sewer system, independent ones for each one of the 4 sites. If any time in the future that we ever get it straightened out, then we can go forward with that. We also are in the process of putting doing 2 more test wells out around Route 40, north of the racetrack. We did a well south of 40. We were able to get 750,000 gallons, just like we needed to. It just took us 2 weeks to regenerate that system, so that well was just a hole in the floor.
1 minute.
So that's probably the only thing that I truly have. We're in the process of still looking for a general manager. We haven't had very much luck whatsoever. We've advertised in a number of different places. We've had, I guess, 6 or 8, and then I think 3 companies that have actually put in for it to do it. But I had 2 that I wanted. One of them was Nathan Coey, but I didn't have any help from any of the board members on interviewing him. They didn't want to do it. So when you're with the three-member board, it's a little bit different than the other board. Also, I would encourage council to review the agreement between the city and the district. I will tell you straight out, those 11 words that seem to be just a pain in the butt out of 30 pages were, in my view, absolutely ridiculous. I protested as much as I could. The other 2 board members decided to leave them there.
30 seconds, sir.
I believe that both CJ and Chris believe that it's a very good agreement for the district. It's a very good agreement for the city. And I think those little 9 or 11 words, whichever one they were, it's not worth losing it over that. And as long as the city builds, as they've said they will build the interconnect, those words don't make a difference anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak tonight? All right, we're going to move on into our interviews, and I will hand the gavel over to our trusted council president, Mr. Barstow. And before I do, I just want to make sure you see Charlie Davis's name on here twice. And Charlie, we've talked to Mr. Zetz about this, and we actually have Mr. Brandon Galick is on the transit board and also on BZA. Mr. Zetz saw no conflict of interest there, so Charlie is wanting to get involved with the city, so you see his name twice. I just want to make that clarification. So, Mr. Barstow, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have, the first thing we have is the Oak Meadows Drive Sidewalk Assessment Equalization Board. I think we have one applicant for that. It's Mr. Berkey, and I believe he's, I don't see him. The column blocks my way. So, Mr. Berkey, if you come on up to the podium, if you would give us your name and address, please. We have your resume, but then just tell us why you'd like to be on the board or anything you want us to know. Thank you.
My name is Donald Berkey. My address is 202 South Fork Circle, Tasker, Ohio, 28860. Do you have any questions on me?
Yes. If council has any questions, feel free to ask. Mr. Hicken has a question?
I guess my first question is, this position is supposed to be impartial, and not have any connections to Oak Meadow itself. You don't have any relatives that live on Oak Meadow or any property that?
I knew some people, I know the area a little bit, but they've long since moved, so, no. No
How
connections at all.
long have you been at Pataskla? I didn't see that.
I've lived in Pataskla for 20 years. My mother lived here for 10 years before that. My grandparents lived here for a while. They've all since passed, but, so I've got 30 years worth of connection and 20 years living at that address.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? No? Okay. Mr. Berkey, thank you very much for,
That's the resume, thank you.
yeah, thanks your resume, thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, the next thing up is the Water and Sewer District representative, so I'm going to turn this, I'm going to recuse myself from that discussion, and I'm going to turn the gavel over to Council Vice President, Mr. Powell.
All right, we'll do the interviews for the Southwest Licking Community Water and Sewer District representative. We have two applicants, Mike Fox and Rob Platt. We will just go in order of what's on the agenda, so we'll start with Mike Fox. When you get up here, just name, address, and give us a little bit of your background and why you want to be reappointed.
Mike Fox, 11540 Broad Street, Southwest Pataskala. I've served the last 3 years on the Sewer and Water District as a representative for not only Lima Township, but the entire city. And that's always been a stickling point with our representatives, is that they weren't here to represent the city, they were only here to represent the township. Nowhere that I find that other than the original agreement that was signed by the judge, that stated that was their only concern. So I've gone and taken a step and tried to keep council involved. You guys have gotten minutes for every meeting that we ever have, and you get it, a couple times a month, I believe. By the time we get done, they're probably a pain, because some of them are hard to read and not any fun, but when I got in there, the first thing that I got involved in was knowing that the city, in particular, the whole western Licking County, but in particular the city of Pataskala, was in great need of water. We tried to do an agreement first off between the sewer and the district and the city, and it didn't go so well, because I think the agreement we always intended for that agreement to be a win-win for all. And the first one around wasn't a win-win. Not quite sure what happened with the second one, because I wasn't permitted to sit in on those conversations, being the representative for the city. We ultimately have come to a tentative agreement that I believe you guys will be looking at soon if you haven't already looked at it. But what I dug into was water. The city and western Licking County, as development heads here, water is a very, very important part of it. We just put a new $14 million water plant in, an upgrade from one that was 25 years old. We doubled the capacity into that, and potential up to 5 million gallons a day in that capacity. Right now, we'll be at 3 million gallons a day. We can't get enough water. I think we all know that we had a Project Oriole that was here, looking to locate here, and somewhere from 5 million to 8 million gallons a day, and that's just between all of us. We couldn't do that between the city and the district. So I would encourage the district and the city to work together. Chris and CJ work together great. I know we've helped a few times, and I know the city's helped the district a few times. And being neighbors like that, we need to help each other. This isn't about politics or anything that involves politics. This is about our residents that need adequate water supply. And in addition to that, if we don't come up with an adequate water supply for the PM district, which we have water there, but you come and ask us for 1 million gallons a day, we're going right over to Chris and asking him how much he can give us, because we can't provide 1 million gallons a day right now. And I know the city can't provide that, but I think between the two of us, we certainly could. So we have tentative agreement in there as part of that, that's something to start to work on, so we're not behind the 8 ball if somebody comes in and wants 1 million gallons a day again. We're looking at an additional 5 million gallons a day that we could have access, and we're having negotiations with in approximately 2 years. But that's an expense of $40 million to provide that. We have another opportunity for some water. Again, doesn't matter how anything happens in the end, it's gonna be expensive. The water may be available, but it's gonna be expensive, but it's gotta happen. And that's the most important thing. The other thing is that, you know, you know me, when I go to a meeting, I go to a meeting. I've been to, never missed, I believe I missed 1 meeting for a surgery that I had in the entire 3 years that I've been there. We've got the new water plant that is opening the 25th of this month for a grand opening at 1 o'clock. Everybody's invited. I believe you probably have already received invitation, I hope, because we directed them to be. So I think what's got to happen is that we've got to keep a very good working relationship between the district and the city. And unfortunately, in the past, that hasn't been. I think it's been a little bit better this time around. I know you guys have gotten a lot more information out of it. And hopefully this very hard worked on agreement will ultimately come to fruition. Any questions?
We'll open up to questions from council. Anybody?
I have a few. You want me to just ask them one at a time? I've got a couple for both of them.
Yeah.
You hit on it when you stood up here a little bit earlier, Mr. Fox, but we've obviously identified that water and sewer services in the corporate park are the biggest issue, one of 2 issues, but probably the biggest issue. Etna seems to be thriving, so what I wanted to understand is they don't appear to be facing the same issues, and I'm speaking just about water and sewer. I realize they have 70 running right through there. Why do you believe that they are thriving from a water and sewer standpoint? I want to make it clear, I want our neighbors to thrive. But why is that an issue for us but not for them, and how would you work to resolve those?
Well, in all honestly, Tom, I think what has happened is the city of Pataskala has never had a representative that was there fighting for them. I'll tell you, if you walk in there and you fold over and you just step in line and you just go with the flow, you're not gonna get anywhere for it. And that's it. And I believe that's probably mostly what happened, except that geographically, where the sewer and water district originally put their plant and everything else was in favor of Route 40. I mean, we know that. Everything that's been run up here. Let me correct a statement. I don't think I said water. The PM district does in fact have a water line going right up Red Chip Lane. So the water that's there, that is provided, that was necessary, is there. It's just if you get somebody coming in here and telling you they want 2 million gallons a day, Chris, you're under 2, aren't you? And we're just a little bit over 2. And that's to meet our customer demands. So, I mean, it's just not something that's gonna happen quick. But to address the sewer, and I believe did I send you some information, BJ, or Tim? I sent you some information about it. About the county originally had plans to take sewer and water both up, right up the middle of Red Chip Lane. And they didn't do it. They got to the point where there was sewer that was actually built by the district on Mink Street that went up Mink Street so far, and then it stopped. That was all, that was their share that they were supposed to do. The county, and I had a meeting with the, county commissioners the other day also, and, they're certainly interested in sitting down and talking, but I don't believe they're gonna write any checks anytime soon. I think that what happened, Tom, is that the water, went, the sewer was too expensive, and it never went anywhere, but it still met the criteria for a JRS site, because on the far western side, it had a 10-inch open sewer.
Okay, let me follow up on that. If it's Aetna-centric, I guess that's, those aren't your words, those are mine, from the beginning, why is another, why are you choosing south of 40 as another site? Why wouldn't you move that closer out of Aetna Township to other entities that, like us, that need it? If it's already Aetna-centric, why keep building
Do
infrastructure?
you know where the sewer plant right now is presently?
Yeah,
Alpha Road.
yeah,
Do you know how far away that is from us?
yeah.
It's pretty far.
I understand
There,
that.
but the choice for that, honestly, that was in negotiations even when I first got in there.
I'm not saying it's not,
But-
I'm just asking the question.
But all I can say is that there's lots that goes into it. The EPA has to approve every step of the way. I mean, once we finally agreed to the price and everything, it took us 1.5 years to get information in place. The only other site that we knew that was available was, remember the little football place down there on Main Street?
Mhm.
And then somebody had bought that just shortly before they started looking for one.
Okay, fair enough.
So, I mean, that's, that site would have been suitable.
Sure.
It wouldn't have been in Pataskal, but it would have been a little bit closer.
Okay. Does anybody else want to ask, or you want me to keep moving?
Can I ask a follow-up to one of your questions?
Sure, absolutely.
Mike?
Yep,
The sewer lines that are in the Aetna corporate park, were those extensions done by Southwest Licking, or were those done by the developer?
To my knowledge, the Southwest Licking provided a 10-inch sewer, from 40 all the way up to pretty much the center of the corporate park. Only on Maine's side though. So these developers that have come in, the first guy that I spoke about with four sites that he wanted to be on Red Chip Lane. We were looking at a 7,000 foot plus force main. And the problem when you have a force main, that means that's his. Doesn't mean anybody else along the line is gonna be plugging in anytime soon. That's primarily, he runs that himself, terribly expensive. And quite honestly, you'll never see development if we don't get something in there for that, in my opinion, unless it starts out on Main Street, which hasn't been the place for it to start.
No, Mike, what I meant was, did the developer go ahead and extend in the Aetna Corporation Park, south of Refugee Road? Did he extend, or that corporation, Southgate, did they extend the sanitary lines to your knowledge? Do you know if they extended the sanitary lines?
To my knowledge, they did. To my knowledge, they
I
took
didn't
them
know if
from
it was
40.
maybe they did it, or maybe Aetna Township maybe participated in it.
No, I don't believe Etna Township did anything.
Just to follow up, it was a good
In
question.
general, the sewer and water district, if you read 6119, we're not allowed to go out and say, I think that's gonna be a hot spot, let's run a sewer there, and let's run water there. We can't do that. Somebody comes to us and says, I've got property up here and I'm interested, we'll start talking to them. We've been talking to Al Coughlin for the last 2 years. Originally, we thought we had a deal. Mr. Coughlin was gonna pay for the money up front, or pay for the lines up front, and he was gonna get his money back through tap fees. We couldn't work a final deal because the sewer and water district doesn't pay interest. So we just couldn't do it. That being said, we did have plans already to bring our lines down, boy, I'm gonna tell you, I'm trying to think of that name of that road. It's not even in Pataskal, but it's east of Pataskal.
You mean up York and over
Yeah, up York and over, and what is it? Begins with an H.
Hollow Road.
Hollow Road, yep, there you go, I remember that. Okay, so we are bringing them to Hollow Road. Once we get to Hollow Road, we have, probably 20 sites between there and, Morse Road that will be paying for that to go up that way. Typically the district works on assessments. An option that I spoke with Mr. Emsweiler and the developer and everybody about are assessments on that property. The district could run those lines and assess the property owners. Mr. Emsweiler, since it's all his property, could write a check for it and get all the tap fees that came out of it in the future. I believe that's limited to 10 years, so it's gotta go and he's gotta get his money back within 10 years. We could also, the district could sit down and work on a financing plan where we're allowed to get loans and we can assign them for different locations like that. But again, that has to get paid back somehow by somebody. And quite honestly, and I think Chris will probably agree, you don't make a whole lot of money doing sewer and water. It's not a money maker. You break even on water most of the time, and sewer you can make a little bit of money on. My argument has been with the board is that if that site, any improvements done to that site, if they put a pump station, which is where the talk is right now, put in a pump station at Refugee and Red Chip Lane, they could drop a pump station and have it all gravity fed to that pump station and then force main it out of there. We're talking 1.2 million and probably 2 million by the time you got done running the lines.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna ask a quick question if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Mike, you and I have had several different conversations, and we talk, I wouldn't say regular, but we talk fair enough. You just mentioned 6119 and your belief that you guys do not do what I will call the Hydra model of expansion, where you send a line out and then expect people to tap into it. I believe that is exactly what you've done as a district. I think the Cogwin example is kind of along those lines, and we always get into this discussion, so I'm gonna ask you, I know I've asked you this before, and it's, how does it benefit the citizens of Pataskala to get water to Jersey? How does it benefit the citizens of Harrison, Etna, and Pataskala, your Pataskala's rep, as this, and you can couch it also with the wastewater plant that you're gonna put in. I think that it's possible to say there's some places that'll get picked up by that plant, but that plant specifically is going to handle a large load of the development corridor on 40. So when those places get put in, the district likes to say, well, we don't spend a penny on those. Those always have to be paid for. But that's not the case, and ultimately, when you guys move to a rate increase, that's happening on the back of Pataskala citizens. How is it good for Pataskala citizens for water to go up to Jersey?
Well, for one, the district is not just Pataskala's or just the customers that are there. The district was created by the courts. There was an issue in western Licking County with sewer and water, and the district was created based on that. So that's where it all started from. I put my 16 grand in back 25 years ago when it started. I can't imagine what it would be today for my site because of the 600 foot. But typically that is how it works. But when the county, who is in charge of all the county areas, turns around and designates an area that is to be controlled or to be serviced by the Southwest Licking Community Sewer and Water District, it then becomes our area that we need to service. We won't go past Morse Road, period, until somebody comes to us and makes it worth the while for the rest of the customers. And that's how it works. And that's how they're doing it. That doesn't mean that they won't eventually run a trunk line The customers up off of Woodside. Fortunately, with the water and the sewer and the school going up there, it was worth it to the district to put more funds into it to make a loop out of it. And by making a loop out of it, we get rid of pump stations. You're gonna have to explain the pump station if anybody asks about that, because it's beyond me, but all I know is they are like some little tiny machine that just sucks everything, including money, you can't imagine the electric bills that are paid for those things. They're unbelievable. So every pump station we pull out makes it more effective to run. The district has not had a rate increase in 8 years, and they've always kept it under their belt.
So does that mean you're not anticipating one?
I didn't want one. I've been
I know,
fighting.
but
We've
let's
got,
be honest, you're looking at the books, you know if you need a rate increase, even if you don't believe you need it.
I think what we need to do is do away with the extra fee that we pay, the debt reduction fee. And, we need to spread that out for everybody, to make that fee go away, and start charging everybody the fare. Right now, we've got, and it's not in Pataskala, but it's Beechwood Trails. Beechwood Trails pays $69 flat rate for
For
sewer.
sewer.
For sewer. I pay for the sewer and water district, my house, sewer, and water combined is about $58. So they're buying water from the city, and they're paying premium on the water. I believe it's an additional 50% that they pay for the water, and then they're paying $69 flat rate. I think that it's gonna hurt, but I think that should all go to proper billing. I know originally at the time that occurred 25 years ago, it wasn't easy to say, here's your water bill, here's your sewer bill. So the county commissioners put it at $69. But I think if I had my way, rates would probably go up, but just to equalize everything and get everybody on the same page, and to make sure that the district was set for the next 10 or 15 years. So is there a rate increase coming? I'll bet there probably is. Am I voting for it? Probably not. They're gonna have to do a lot of convincing.
That's all for me.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Tom.
Mr. Fox, what was the approximate cost of water and sewer infrastructure improvements for the new Coles Development Center in Etna? And is that cost, whatever it may be, is that picked up by the developer or by the taxpayer?
That is picked up by the developer. The Coles has a 10-inch sewer line going in front of it, and it already has a water line in place. So they will pay tap fees, and they will pay, and I wanna say, they're talking close to a 3,000, 3,500 foot run to get where they wanna be with it. And they pay for that. That's the developer's baby. But it's not apples and apples. I mean, you know, you got Coles, who's way up here, and you got this guy that wants to build 400, I think it was 100,000 square foot, 50,000 square foot for a spec building. There's a big difference in what they can afford. Honestly, and I have not ever looked into it, but my understanding, being on the board, that all of these big companies that came in, they don't even shake their head at anything. They just say, how much is it gonna be? They take it from the spot that they go and they pay for it. And there's not any discussion. It is all paid for by the companies. It's not, there's not a lot of funds available, Tommy, for that, other than for them to pay it. If they don't pay it, then the customers are gonna pay it. And I will tell you, the other two board members that are on there, they don't let that happen, period. I mean, I can honestly say that's never happened in 3 years that I've been there. But there has been some things that have happened. We've had nonprofits where we've been able to help nonprofits that come into the ballpark over on Refugee Road. They came in and, man, I don't even remember what it was gonna cost. It was a lot of money. It actually was just, they can't do it. They weren't gonna be able to put their thing in there. And ultimately, we actually changed the procedures so that they could. And it's not only for them, it includes the city of Pataskala for Southwest Licking Sewer and Water runs. If you build a building somewhere here in the city, there are some abilities that you can do there that other people can't. So it was churches, it was nonprofits, and it was entities.
I wish Southwest Licking Sewer, West Licking Joint Fire had been accorded that. Because when we built our building, we got no break.
There was a negotiation during that time,
Yeah.
and the fire district turned down the negotiation. Straight out.
Well, if you ask somebody what it's gonna cost and they say it's the same thing, then, and you turn down that negotiation, then
No.
I'm pretty sure that's.
We were asked what it was gonna cost, and they asked for a break because they came to me. And I went to the board and said, can we do this? And the board said, procedure-wise, we can't. However, we are looking for a location to put a metered water location. They've got a lot of property right there on the corner of York and 40, and it would have been a suitable site. The district was willing to work out a trade or a deal along those lines to get that. And I honestly, I believe that the fire district wasn't pleased with the deal, and I don't blame them, because I can't see us just, we're all taxpayers, and every one of us pay for Southwest Licking Fire District, or West Licking Fire District. So I would think that if we're willing to help other entities and do things, if they want to build another site there, they can run it off their main line. They don't have to go back and get another whole tap. That's basically what we ended up doing. We did that for the ballpark and that. But we tried on that. I tried on that anyway.
I hijacked Tommy's question.
No, that's
okay.
okay. And just
No,
to clarify on
that's
the ballpark, I will agree that they did work with us, but the taps were already, they weren't paid, they were traded in some deal a long time ago, so the tap fees were already covered. It was the.
Yeah, but what we did do, Tom, was.
I know, you guys did, I will say.
The
that.
tap
I will
fee,
give you
there
that.
was one tap that was given to the.
To the Lions Club.
Lions Club. Typically, when you put another building in with another sewer and everything else, you run another whole sewer line. You run another whole water line. And what we were able to do, if you build a residence and you decide you're gonna put sewer and water out in your garage, you don't pay another tap fee. So
No,
basically, what we did with you guys was, or not you guys, but with that entity, was we changed the policy so that entities such as yourself, because it was common sense, could do it, and it saved them lots of money. I don't
Instead of
know
running
exactly.
3 taps there, you let us run 1.
Right,
So, thank you. for
and
that.
it was already paid for.
And it was traded along.
It was traded I don't think, actually, no, they did, they wrote a check for it. I remember looking at the check.
Before my time. I only had one other question.
I'm done.
If I wanted everybody to have.
Go ahead.
Mike, I just wanted to address there's a lot of rumors or whatever out there, so let's just address the manager's position. Is it accurate that the job description for the manager's position was changed, and if so, could you explain what the thought process of the board was for changing that job description?
The job, we took an old job description and we used it in the beginning. It had in there a engineer as the general manager. There've been questions as whether that was worth it to the district by paying the additional to have an engineer in that position or not. We started for the first 6 weeks, I believe, it may have been 8 weeks, and we advertised for that position. We got 1 applicant from Kentucky, I believe, wasn't licensed in the state of Ohio. Tried to determine what he had to do to get licensed. It was gonna be quite a chore to become licensed. But, then the other ones were the three companies that put their name in. They had engineers, that they were gonna manage the district. They were gonna manage the administration of the district. I believe they had engineers on staff.
So there was no engineers that applied for that?
No, not that came with any recommendation of any sort.
But,
I know there was one, and I worked on it specifically myself, because he was out of state, and he called me, and I helped him get some information from the state on the requirements, and
are those resumes and applicants public record?
yes.
Um,
In fact, if you call them quick, they'll probably have them already, because somebody else just asked for them not too long ago. I think in fact, we may have released them today.
Oh, okay. And my last question, just a follow-up to that, and then I'm done. Is Mr. Carlisle being considered for this position, and what's your stance on that?
Mr. Carlisle has never put an application in. However, I will say, John Carlisle has 40 years' experience as a licensed plumber in the state of Ohio.
Is he an engineer?
No.
That's all I got.
So what we did change it though, we took the engineer out and we got 2 or 3 more applicants, and that was it.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for applying.
Anybody else?
As I recall, and this has been a while, so if I don't have all of my facts together, maybe you can help me, but back when I got on council, we had a representative, don't have to say who it is, that believed strongly that it was all about Lima Township, and that's okay. Never came to a meeting, and that was one of our big beefs. The second guy, since I've been here, was Larry Mead. Larry did a much better job of coming to the meetings and giving us information, but not much happened in Lima Township or Pataskala during that period. What have you done for Pataskala and Lima Township in the last 3 years, other than taking up water up to Woodside and up to the schools and stuff, and the new tower in on Cleveland? And I guess I'm frustrated because this is only including tonight, giving us an update, which I appreciate. This is only the 4th time you've come to council.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But what I will tell you is that every single one of you, from the time I got on there, received the minutes in your emails.
Well,
Specifically for that reason, so that you were aware. And I do know some of you've read them, because I get questions about them. For me to come in here and mention the 2 or 3 things that I can mention on an evening like I did tonight, just doesn't seem to do a whole lot for anybody. In fact, I got yelled at for not coming because I called and gave a couple of you some heads up that the developer had gotten his answer, which is all he was looking for. He wanted an answer.
well, 2 of the 4 meetings, I had to ask you to come or get you
I
on the
would
agenda.
think that the city would have to ask anytime they would want a representative to come to an additional meeting and to present something. And if there's something to be presented, I would present it.
Okay. Fair
I mean,
enough.
there just wasn't a whole lot going on, but I can tell you, you talk about the little water plant, or the little water tower, I think it was $6 million that was put into the
I
city.
didn't say little, you replaced
Okay,
the
we
water
replaced
tower.
the water
And I'm
tower.
glad you did, because the
So-
one that was there was little, and you put a nice big one in. I'm not
And
arguing with that.
had the loop not been put in for, at Woodside
Mhm.
and brought all the way around, the school district would not have had the capability to do what they're doing. And I believe, I don't know if they've taken it out yet or not, but a sore spot was always the fact that they had to have their own little water tower back there. And us doing what we did, they don't have to have that water tower back there anymore.
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
the 2 projects that I'm aware of, so.
Well, there's quite a few things. That's not where I am. I mean, you know, we approved that stuff, but then we're working on the next thing in line, which just happened to be Southwest, you know, why we don't have sewer in the PM district. that we sold for, was it 2007 that started? The PM district, was that finally approved in '7?
Not sure.
But anyway, I'm amazed that nobody ever really realized that it was gonna cost that amount of money to put sewer there. You know, nobody ever brought that to anybody's attention until we just happened to talk to a developer, and he said, here's where I wanna go, and the general manager looked at, who incidentally, the general manager that's been running it for the last year has no formal education, past his water and sewer training that he has.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Platt? Name, address, a little bit of your background, why you are applying for the position.
Yeah, thank you, members of council and Mr. Mayor. My name is Rob Platt. I reside at 371 Woodside Drive here in the city, former Lyman Township area, so I do qualify to serve on the board. I've been there right about 30 years at that same address. There was a 10-year period I was gone after high school, but I did come back, so collectively 30 years. I am with the project that was discussed earlier, the extension for Cable Summit and the loop on Woodside. I am a recent customer to the district. Have some interesting insight to that, is how that works out. When you're a customer and the kind of the things you have to go through for that, and what makes sense and what doesn't. And I do have some ideas on some things I'd like to see changed at the district. Happy to go into that, but that's another story. The last time I was before you was 3 years ago. Most of you were here, if not all. I did apply for the position. There was a concern of conflict of interest at that time. If you recall, when you first did your interviews, you then tabled them to a subsequent meeting. Ultimately, that was determined not to be a case of valid concern by your law director. At that time, also, if you recall, I was switching employment. I was going from administrator down the township to work in the planning and development department at Licking County. So there was not a conflict at that point. To jump forward then 3 years, I now work for Delaware County, so complete different county, not even the one we're in here. And I'm the economic development administrator there. Basically, that's just a title that says that I am the liaison to the Delaware County Finance Authority, which in essence is the port authority out there. And then I know this will come as no surprise. I do a lot of assistance with the townships in Delaware as far as JED creation and rezonings and things like that. So that's the vast majority of what I do for Delaware. Last time in my packet that I submitted, there was I gave a couple reference letters, and one I did the same this time. One was from Bob Stewart, and I contacted Bob again and asked him if he wanted to draft another one, or if I could just, reincorporate the one that he gave me last time. He said feel free. So he is the director of Jefferson's Water and Sewer District. Worked at Jefferson, as you all know, for 13 years, so I know him very well. So I did want to point out that's why that date is in there. I also gave a couple other references, and one I'll call out here a little bit later. It's important to know with my current employer, the Water and Sewer District, as you know, meets in the afternoons. Delaware County has cleared me to work at my schedule as appropriate. Obviously, I would need to use time as needed, and we have a internal policy for if you're going to do something outside of your regular county employment, you let them know. I did submit their required documentation. They did sign off on that, including the county administrator reviewed that, and incidentally, that is Michael Fromer, who used to be the general manager of the Water and Sewer District out here. So had a good discussion with him. He's very much so aware of the district and what all's involved, and I thought I'd be a good fit for it. So I was encouraged by that. So I am county approved Delaware to serve out here. Also, you all know me as just different hats here, but serving on the BZA for the last 3 years, and the most recent 2 years as their chairperson. So I certainly know the vast majority of people involved out here. I know you all. Mr. Carlisle was referenced earlier. You guys know I worked for him at Aetna for 3.5 years. Have a good relationship there. Mr. Kretzman, I've met a few times. I don't know that we've ever even had coffee, but certainly that would be the first contact I would make should you appoint me. And then as far as CJ is still there, obviously I worked with him at Aetna. It's disappointed to see Mr. Conkle go, but and who knows, we'll see what happens here. But at any rate, probably the first thing that jumped out to me was the communication, and I appreciate the mayor's comments. I guess I would be extremely clear and upfront and say that should you appoint me to this board, my first request of council would be to add a permanent, if you would call it permanent, a continuing agenda item for an update report each month from the Water and Sewer District, because I believe you guys are entitled to that, not just the minutes. So my intent would be to show up every month to give you a report, even if it's, hey, I got 2 seconds more to say than what the minutes actually say, but that way those questions could be answered. I thought about that 3 years ago when I applied, and it kind of struck me odd as you have these reports on the agenda, but there's not a Water and Sewer District report called for or appointed, and it's obviously up to you how you set your agenda. I would just respectfully request that you would put that, and I would assure you that I would be here. If not the first meeting, the second, and if not, it's because I'm on vacation or somewhere out of town or something. But so I guess coming back to that, communication is the key. You guys need to know what's going on. I would serve as your appointment to that board, and there was a lot of great questions earlier. As with anything, communication, it's key. You know, I've got a good relationship with Mr. King. I've not met Mr. Shurak yet. But certainly would want to sit down with him, Chris and CJ, and get updated just as soon as possible. I guess the second thing that I would want to point out is there was a public outreach meeting held by, and many of you, or probably all of you don't know this, held by the Water and Sewer District. I don't know the date, it's September of 2017. It was held at Licking Heights High School by the staff of the district, so we're talking Mr. Conkle and CJ, and I think there was another guy there. This is September 2017, and this is a public outreach meeting of the districts to let cards were sent to the residents to let them know what was going on, what the upcoming project was, and they did a great job. I referenced it in my application. Did a great job answering questions, but as we all know, staff is sometimes limited to what questions they can answer, and sometimes when you're an elected or appointed official, you can kind of give a little more history or backstory or at least reasons why things happen. There was no representative of you guys there at this meeting. This is a Water and Sewer District meeting with our residents that had questions beyond what the staff could provide. Your staff could tell you, hey, this is what the project's going to be, Woodside Drive, Cable Summit, you're going to get water. But when it came to the whys, why is this happening? Why are you doing this? There was your appointed representative at that time was not there. I don't at all looked at this for some sort of pat on the back or anything, but it got to the point where the district couldn't really answer the questions, and the crowd was getting a little bit frustrated, so I simply stood up and said, hey, press pause, let me tell you what the history is. Let me tell you what's really going on here and why the Water and Sewer District is doing this. Kind of a bigger scope, and that's simply because I was involved at Aetna, right? So I kind of knew when Mr. Rector and Mr. Conkle, some more details, I guess, that I could share. I did assure them I was not Mr. Fox and that I did not represent the city, but I was happy to help try to give some more details and answer those questions of the residents. I think that should happen anytime there's a project unveiling, anything that's going on. I think your representative should be there, so that would certainly be my intent, is to be there and answer those questions, whether the staff and the general manager are there or not. Sometimes there's other things that people want to know, so I would certainly do that. There's a letter of reference in my packet from Mr. Johnson. He does live down the road from me. I met him 2 months ago. He was at that 2017 meeting. I met him at, maybe it's been a couple more, it was at VBS, it was sometime over the summer I met him. And he remembered me from that meeting and had thanked me for the additional information that the staff didn't provide. So obviously it'd be a new appointment, right? I've been involved out here, like I said, for a long time. A lot of insight through Mr. Rector, through Mr. Conkle, through my experience at Aetna. I can certainly assure you that I would jump right in. I would be scheduling meetings even before my term would start, should you appoint me. So there would be a couple meetings here. I know they've got in November. I'm not exactly clear when the appointment starts. Really doesn't matter to me. Should you appoint me, I would take that as, hey, I start tonight. So I would start attending those meetings. It's one thing to review their minutes online. You don't really get all of it there. So I guess in the interest of time, there was a lot of good questions. And Mr. Lee, I'll start with you. Had asked a question. And forgive me who asked what and where the questions came from and stuff, but obviously my experience from Aetna, right, is going to bring a lot to this. A lot of the development that happened in the 3.5 years that I was there also kind of set the stage for what's going on now. You know, I certainly won't take credit for things, but we all know that you put things in place and stuff, and you're involved in discussions. So I think that way I would bring a lot to this board. Developers, a good example on the water end, there was a question of how the things got extended in the Aetna Corporate Park. Southgate did, to my recollection, pay for a lot of the sewer infrastructure to go in. On the other end of that, Prologis paid for the water tower that sits out there. That's why their name's on the side of it. The thing that we all got to keep in mind, though, is that's all great to put it on the developer, but don't be misled. They're getting paid back, right? They're not. So it's not as easy to just say, hey, Mr. Developer, you're going to pay for this and extend it. Well, there's a lot of negotiation. There's a lot of details. As certainly BJ knows, that comes into play. And I think I would bring a lot of experience there, really, to be honest, to make those things happen. Compensation agreements and things that maybe the district's not involved in, but when it comes to getting those utilities ran, certainly we can figure out ways to do that. I was surprised. I knew about the Coghlan project when I was kind of unveiled when I was working for Lincoln County, and I thought that they were paying for that, so I was a little maybe taken aback, surprised how that's playing out. I do not agree going back to attending meetings and being on the agenda. I do not agree that you guys should have to ask for that. I think that it's incumbent upon your representative to do that, to be here. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that you guys know me. I guess I just tried to fill in some gaps of maybe what you didn't know, or some questions that might be out there, but I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
All right, council, chicken?
Do you plan to continue on planning and zoning, or will you abdicate that position?
So BZA, right?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's
all
a
right.
plan. We got planning and zoning
Hey.
later, so.
I understand.
BZA.
Yeah, so I guess my general thought is, I serve at the pleasure of the city, so I would ask, what would you think? What would you want? I would assume that, I don't know this, but I would assume that your law director would probably say that I should serve on one or the other. So I guess my knee-jerk response would be, I would assume that I would step down from that position. And as a follow-up, 2 years chairing that board, I believe that our board's come a long way. I think it's a great board. Looks at things the way they should be, and it has a lot of thought goes into it. So I think I've helped it a lot, contributed a lot. I guess point being, I don't think I'd be leaving them hanging, I guess.
I'd just like to press a little harder. I said I was gonna ask the same question when
Sure.
Mr. Fox was up here.
Sure.
With your experience at Aetna, what can be done to help that situation, the water and sewer services situation in our corporate park? They're thriving, like I said, which we want them to, they're our neighbors. But what do you see as maybe one or two things that we can do together to make that a non-issue and maybe make it attractive?
Sure. So the main problem, right, is sewer. And while it's true that it is on the west end of that, on that main road area there, again, we're talking 3 years ago, if memory serves me, I believe that the east end of that is somewhere around Refugee and Columbia maybe, or something, like it would have to be extended, and I do recall conversations with Mr. Rector, that would be the ideal way to extend that. And Mr. Lee, I'll be honest with you, it's one of those you've got to, there's, I guess I'll come back to another thing, but lot of that shakes out in negotiations. A lot of that is, development compensation agreements. What is the developer gonna pay for? What tools does the city have in play, right? What kind of partner is the water and sewer district being, right? Are they hindering the development by, significant tap fees? Could those tap fees be, returned back to the developer to help offset their costs? There's all kinds of ways to do those things. The other thing that we would have to keep in mind, and Edna, really to be honest, has an unfair advantage because as an unincorporated township, they can put JEDs and JEDZs in place, and those generate significant income tax revenues. On the Prologis portion north of 40 at 1.75%, which is more than what you guys collect, certainly gives room in development agreements to compensate developers back for their costs. So it's a little bit unfair. They have the ability to headroom, if you will, to pay for those, and then same rate with Amazon, but they're using those JEDs for all their other development, right? So it's I guess there's a few different things. There's a little bit of a disadvantage there. I would think that things could be worked out through negotiations and agreements. And then I think you gotta look at proximity too. That's crazy. 7,000, 8,000 feet to have to run, it's not really ready, right? If it's not ideal on Mink Road and it's gotta be extended, you guys aren't sitting in a good position. So the question goes back then to your water, your water supply, right? Why are we dropping well fields and tests and this and stuff, in essence, outside of the district? Why are we extending those services up 310? I think those things need to be redirected to take care of what we've got within in the district first before we go doing that stuff.
And I appreciate that answer. I want to follow up on that. I should have pressed and gave Mr. Fox the same opportunity to ask this. So I apologize for that. But when you said, a lot of it comes through negotiation, we've been told that when developers have come in, it's been difficult for them to get, if they say we want to do X, Y, or Z, it's been very difficult and time consuming for them to get an answer from the district as to what is actually this gonna cost and what do we need. If you were appointed, would that be something that you could work with BJ on to make sure we have those numbers and the county as well, Mr. Strong, so that there's no guesswork? If a company comes in, they know what it's gonna cost and what they have available to them.
Sure. Absolutely. The answer is absolutely. Due diligence obviously is critical for a developer when they come in. They can't be, 3 months waiting on 6 meetings and phone calls, and so all that's gotta be known ahead of time. But yeah, I think that's, again, it goes back to the example of the September 2017 meeting. Have you had good representation? How are you gonna move forward? What are you guys gonna have moving forward? I think that's the key, to get those in place.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Andy?
Rob, your view of the general manager's position, how do you see that as far as filling that role for the district? If
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're appointed, you'd be asked, as far as the job description, what do you think is important for the general manager assets that they need to have to be the general manager? You've worked with a few of them.
I appreciate the question, and obviously I'm at a slight disadvantage, right? I haven't read the job description or been on the board, so I don't know what those discussions are. I find it interesting that an engineer requirement has been taken out. It's kind of like, I guess not at Edna, but my previous township administrator was an attorney, but he wasn't the township's attorney, right? But he brought that knowledge and experience. And I think that would be the case here. I don't know why you would not want your general manager making your recommendations to a 3-member board on construction projects or how things should be done. That's not an engineer, that doesn't know those kinds of things. Certainly CJ's, I'm sure, done a great job, continuing to run the board as it's been. And certainly you can get an outside consultant to do so. Then you're paying some sort of administrative staff or director plus. I think that the immediate thing I would say is, first of all, put that requirement back in. That should be the job description. And again, not looking at it, I'm interested to know what the pay is. Did they set the pay too low? Are they not getting interest because of that? I don't know these things. Cause you've gotta attract good talent, right, to keep it, and that's what you need. So I guess that would be my immediate, I would wanna see that job description and see why, but to answer your question, as far as, would I make a change there? Absolutely, I would do everything I could to make that change.
Any more questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Black.
Okay, thank you all, appreciate it.
All right, we will go ahead and move on to the interviews for Planning and Zoning Board, and I will return the gavel to Mr. Barstow.
Mr. Powell. Okay, so we have a number of applicants for the Planning and Zoning Board, so I'm just gonna call them up again in the order that they appear in the agenda. So first up would be Charles M. Davis. So Mr. Davis, if you come forward, for the record, identify yourself and your address, please.
Good evening, my name is Charlie Davis, 343 Isaac Tharp Street in Pataska, Ohio, 43062. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My interest was in the position for planning and zoning, as well as transit and board, for the simple fact I applied for both, for the simple fact I felt, oh, there was 2 vacancies, one position each, so I figured with great expectation with the 2 openings, hopefully I will approve and be approved for one of them. Hopefully that will transpire tonight. It's been a long evening, and I just feel that I just want to keep it simple and short. I moved in Pataska in 2006, built our first home, my wife and I built our first home in 2006, closer to the Summit area. Then as of November this year, November 20th, it'd be 2 years that we have moved down into the settlement of Pataska area where we built our home there. So I've been in Pataska for quite some time. My sister and her husband have lived in Pataska for 35 years. Their kids went to Watkins and things of that nature, so I have always driven through the area, and that's another reason why we settled down into this area. One thing I was really curious about the area of Pataska, I was curious what the vision of Pataska is, because I'm starting to see a lot of construction going on, warehouses, schools, so I was just curious what the vision of Pataska in regards of, are we gonna stay a small town, or are we looking to develop and get bigger? What kind of traffic are we really looking for? Are we looking for more restaurants? Are we looking for more activity? Or we really wanna have that 2, 3, 5 acre land in our backyard with a pond? So, just kinda curious to what direction we're going. I believe my experience with being on several volunteer boards, if you have my resume that was sent out, one in particular, 2018, on the board with the Columbus Eastside Business Association, which is headed up by Steve Lindsay and Josh Biani. I'm on the board with them, keeping the east side of Columbus, more of the Reynoldsburg area, getting some things worked on in the sense of there's a bridge corridor that needs a sidewalk. There's been quite a few fatalities, and we are hitting the city hard, trying to get make it look like the 310 corridor. So that is some work that I've been doing in regards of planning and zoning by sitting on board with people like that. My interest also is just, since I live here, I shop here, I live in this area. I have a small ministry, it's in Reynoldsburg, but I'm also looking for a ministry in the Pataska area. I have connected with leaders and ministers of Pataska, where we do meet once a month and we pray for some new business. We actually prayed at the police station, we prayed at the fire department, we prayed in these areas, and been part of that team as well. So with that said, I open myself up for some questions if there are any.
Yeah, so council, any questions for Mr. Davis?
I just appreciate you applying for 2 things.
Thank you.
No.
Actually, I'll ask you one question. I have questions for everybody. I'm trying not to duplicate them, but just maybe a quick overview of what do you see as the major job of planning and zoning?
I guess seeing the development coming through, through the cities, being on that board and having, a clear cut, non-biased opinion and make sure that we are helping the direction of the city where it wanted to go. So, I think too many people on the team that's knowing the vision, that's why that is my first statement, what is the vision of Pataskla? So I think we need to know what that vision is so we can help map out that vision and make it happen.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, I have one
Yeah.
question. Have you attended any planning and zoning commission meetings here in the city?
I have not.
Okay, fair enough. Any other questions? No. Folks, thank you, Mr. Davis, thank you very much, appreciate it, thanks for applying. Okay, the next person who's on the agenda is Timothy Bush, but I believe that Mr. Bush, he contacted me, he contacted Kathy, and he was not able to be here this evening. So we have his resume, I believe he has one, so.
And who's currently on?
He is currently on the Records Commission, is that, okay. Again, just another person who was interested, I did contact me about it. So the next person up is Gary Kendall. Mr. Kendall.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Kendall. I live at 11254 Cable Road here in Pataskla. I have lived here for 62 years. I grew up in Lima Township. Dairy farming in that area was the mainstay. I grew up in that area, love it, would like to help maintain it to a certain extent, realizing that development can't be curtailed, but it can be planned and orchestrated to benefit everybody, especially those areas in the rural ag district that, there's a lot to be had there for people who are willing to spend the money to have bigger lots, and right now it's a lot of people interested in horses and so on, which is okay in my opinion. There's a lot of row crop farming going on. But anyway, my interest is doing what I can to represent people in that area. And I think it's important that we have somebody from all the different walks of life in the community. The ag district, I think, is going to be a very important one overall for a long, long time. One of the things I think I bring to it, I'm a retired engineer. My expertise has been in the water and wastewater facilities design and planning and construction. And I think what I will bring to it is the concept of approach of analyzing whatever's submitted with the interest that we're going to have development, but it can be beneficial to the community in a general sense that everybody should be satisfied with it. And I think one of the more important things that is missed a lot of times is that forcing developers to consider the impacts of their improvements on the roadways. But it's always been my concern about turning radiuses. It's always a pain in the neck when you see somebody sitting in an intersection and they have to back up because of semis coming around the corner. Now granted, you're not going to have semis in subdivisions, but you're going to have those incidents where you have larger trucks, especially during construction, that go in and out. Anyway, just one of my pet peeves from my experience. I did serve very shortly on ODOT's commission for planning. Unfortunately, that didn't work out well for me for time-wise. But at any rate, I hope you'll consider my interest in getting back on the board. I served 3 different terms prior to the end of 2018, and would appreciate the opportunity to sit on the board again. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Kendall?
No, thank you.
No? Okay. Mr. Kendall, thanks for coming, we appreciate it. Okay, next is Ben Hubble. Mr. Hubble, there he is, okay, thought I saw him. So, Mr. Hubble, if you just again identify yourself for the record and your address, please, and we'll go forward.
Benjamin Hubble. I reside at 1736 Keela Drive, Pataskla, Ohio, 43062. Been a resident of Pataskla for 9 years. Political science undergrad, always. My mother was a reporter, father was sold snowplows and equipment, road equipment to all the townships, not in central Ohio, but up more in the snow belt area. So a lot of experience with local government, going to city council meetings with my mom, going to trustee dinners with my dad. So I've always been interested, and interested in how the city's growing. I've lived here long enough to see what's going on, participated in the council or the survey of the residents for planning for the future. That really stoked my interest. Also, my kids are getting older, they don't like to hang out with me as much, have a little more free time. Thought, why not apply to be on this committee? So that's what brings me here.
I understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I understand.
it's commiserating with you.
I'm like, I get it, they don't wanna hang out with me either.
Yeah,
Not your kids, mine.
All of a sudden you have free time.
Yeah.
right.
So does
You only
anybody,
spend so much time on fantasy football.
does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hubble?
What's your overall feeling about development in Pataskala?
I'm a fan of development, but I love Pataskala, the rural charm. I grew up in Bucyrus, Ohio. It's a very rural town. They wish they had development. I love that I can live here, I can be downtown Columbus in 20 minutes, but I can also be in a place that feels like Bucyrus. So how do we go about maintaining that feel, knowing that development's inevitable? So want to make sure that somebody, the people on the board, on the commission that are looking at planning and zoning have that mindset to be able to make that balance.
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Hubble, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a non-city question. Is Ethan your son? And Maddie?
Ethan? Yeah, Matt.
Okay,
And
just
Macy,
check-
there's
no,
another
okay,
one.
just checking.
Yeah, they just keep coming.
The next is Ronald G. Edwards Jr. Going once, I don't see, okay, so no one's out there twitching in the audience, so Mr. Edwards apparently is not here, so we do have his resume. The last person that we had was a person named Stephen Edge. I don't see Mr. Edge. Let me discuss that for a minute. And Kathy, help me out with the details on this, because I'm a little late to the party. It appears that Stephen Edge provided a resume, however, the city Facebook page had an incorrect address for Kathy. And so, Mr. Edge, Mr. Stephen Edge, Pate Edge, didn't hear anything back, so he contacted Kathy, is that correct, Kathy?
Yes.
And then wanted, hey, sort of what's going on, and she said, and then that's when they realized that there was this incorrect email address. So, Mr. Edge didn't provide the bounce back email that he would have gotten from the incorrect page, so we're not sure if, there's no, I'm not trying to be too much of a lawyer here, but I can't help myself. There's just no evidence that Mr. Edge provided to us that he provided a timely application for this position, so I'm just gonna throw that, out there to council, see if there's any discussion on the issue how we wanna handle, Stephen Edge's application.
Does he not know about this meeting tonight?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. No, thank you.
You asked for questions.
No, that's, thank you. So, okay, well, that is, the only other we have on the agenda, we'll be back to the mayor for the Licking County Transit Board, that's the mayor's, appointment, so I'm giving you the gavel back, Mayor, and it's been in good hands, since, 7:05.
So Charlie, just stay where you're at. Charlie Davis has applied for, and this is for alternate. As you know, Brandon Gaelic is on that, as the, person right now, and the commissioners call me every once in a while and say, look, we love Brandon, he's great, but, you keep for years and years and years, don't have an alternate in place, and it's our job to have an alternate. If Brandon can't make it, I'd like to have somebody on board, and that's why I encourage Charlie to, Charlie's been wanting to get involved with the city, so when he said, I said, apply for everything that's out there and let's get your foot in the door. So you don't have to come back up. What you explained to us tonight is what you're all about, where you live, where you came from, what you do, so I'm totally satisfied with that, so I will be making a motion later on tonight to to put Mr. Davis on the Licking County Transit Board as an alternate. So, all right?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
one thing, both this position and the regular position on that transit board, both will have to be reappointed again at the end of the year.
Okay.
Those terms will expire
Okay, very good.
in December.
Mr. Mayor, I should have said that at the appropriate time in motions,
Mhm.
back to the council, one with the exception of the Water and Sewer Board, which Mr. Powell handled, will be looking at whether appointing, or council's pleasure on appointing folks to those boards where it's our appointment. Thank you.
Mr. Higgins?
For those people that are out there that came up and put their names in for anything, I remember the first time I ever had to do something like this, and it was to appoint Mr. Compton's replacement, who happens to be sitting immediately to the left of me. And it, the way it rolls out is oftentimes looks very odd to people who aren't involved with government a lot. Some of you, of course, already are, so you will understand it. But I personally just wanted to thank everybody for doing it. When it rolls out, you may see somebody make a motion and there is an immediate second, but there's no votes for that individual. We have all looked at the resumes, which were very impressive, and don't be discouraged because you think how the voting, the sausage-making voting looks, because that's how it has to look. But I personally am impressed by everybody. I know that the last time that we went through this, that wasn't conveyed to everybody. So me personally, and I'm sure all council feels roughly the same way, I'm very grateful for anybody that puts in for these. And we'll see those in the motion section then, as Mr. Marshall said, I think.
Correct. Yeah, we'll, because I'm obviously recusing myself on part of those. When we get to motions, that's the appropriate point in the agenda, to do that.
Can I also say really quick to piggyback off Mr. Higgins, that if you don't get appointed anything tonight, don't stop here. Keep going. Sometimes it takes more than once. So I encourage you to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I applied for a couple of different things before I was put on personal board of review, so it's not personal.
So you went through the meat grinder too, huh?
Yes, I did. I applied for a couple of different things. Yes, yes.
We all did. Anything else on all that? If not, we'll move to introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Consent agenda passes. On the reports, tonight you'll see under ordinance 2019-4347, the third reading, ordinance to make supplemental appropriations. What's included in there, just so you know, we did get the final cost on the trees, and if you've seen the landscaping at the police station, it's totally out of this world. It's actually better than what I thought it was going to be. I had a vision, but that vision was blown away. So the total was, on the trees, was $3,500, I want to say?
$3,500.
So the city
The
paid,
COs.
yeah, the city paid $3,500 to get, I mean, I think there's like 40 conifers, and then all of the other deciduous trees and all the bushes and all the plants was all donated, and then of course the time to plant them, and the stone wall around the front was very professionally done, and then all of it was mulched. So we got I still want to say easily a $30,000 landscape job for $3,500. So I hope you'll consider that in 4347. Veterans Day, we're going to be celebrating that on November 9th. We picked the Saturday because we thought we could get more folks to come. The Legion picks these dates, not myself, but instead of the 11th on Monday at 11 a.m., it will be on Veterans Day. It will be on the 9th, Saturday at 11 o'clock at Veterans Green. So always open that up. Any council members that might be there, will you help me again this year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I will be there.
I love it when you guys come and help me read all the names. to remember our veterans.
Will we get some
Yeah, we'll get some good bell ringers this
Alright.
time, yes ma'am. I know that was frustrating.
Mayor, could you
No,
repeat
just
the time?
tricky.
That was 11 a.m. on Saturday, November 9th. Well, listen, I just, last week we had, well, I know Mr. Hicken will probably expand on this, but got my little note that says you are Mayor Compton. Something that Mr. Hicken does, and I'll recognize him for it because it's a lot of work and a lot of time. But bringing the third graders in here to experience what a council meeting is amazing. I could swear that one of those classes were 8th graders instead of 3rd graders because of the questions that they were asking. But we did something different this year, and I want to thank Deputy Chief Bowles also, and Detective Wiles, and maybe Gary Smith, and the rest of the guys that pitched in, because 300 total?
Yeah.
Okay, 300 third graders not only came in here and experienced what a council meeting's like under the direction of Councilman Hicken, but we all took them through the police station and gave them a tour.
At one time, they were 300?
No.
Or did they come on different
They
days?
came in, they
They came
came
on
two
different days.
two different days,
Okay.
broke up into classes.
Sorry, I started twitching.
But they
What
were,
is the student to adult ratio?
yeah, we broke them up into groups, and obviously, if you've seen the police station, you know that some of those rooms wouldn't hold 30, so we split them up even further, and we would go on one tour while the deputy chief would take them on another tour. But truly amazing that again, that station is being something of a PR piece in itself. The chamber, we were in there last week with about almost 60 members of the chamber having lunch, and again, we took all of the chamber members through and gave them a tour, which was amazing. And then I actually had 46 years ago, I started a car club as a 16-year-old, and we had the car club is still in existence, and actually called me about a month ago and said, hey, we're coming out to the Nutcracker to eat, and we're gonna have a meeting somewhere, we don't know where we're gonna have it at. And I said, hey, I'd love to show you the police station. And so I got together with all my old car buddies from 46 years ago, and they had their meeting in the training room, and I gave them a tour, and everybody just loves that station. So I'm still pinching myself, so thanks again to council and everybody, because it's just fantastic. And to get it landscaped, if you haven't seen it, please take a walk around that station and see what was done by Jeremy Nestor and his group. I bet you had 15 or 18 guys out here and in like 4, 5, 6 hours, and a big auger, and that's what you see. So very excited about that. Mr. Barstow, what do you got?
I don't have anything, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Law Director David, what do you got for me? Anything?
Mr. Zetz had nothing.
Mr. Betts had nothing. Okay, thank you. Mr. Kang.
Thank you, Mayor. To keep in the spirit of board appointments, after this evening, I wanted to get through this evening to avoid any confusion, but tomorrow there will be advertisements going out for 2 positions on Planning and Zoning Commission that are set to expire at the end of, 2 positions on Planning and Zoning that are set to expire at the end of this year. We'll also have 2 positions on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board that will expire this year. And as Kathy mentioned, the 2 positions on the Licking County Transit Board that are set to expire this year. So those advertisements will go out tomorrow. We will make sure there are correct email addresses and contact information on those.
Mr. King?
Yes, sir.
Is one of the Parks and Rec a appointment by the school?
The city has 2 coming up, and the school does have one,
Okay.
and I'll be contacting the school about their appointment.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. The only other item I have is on October 20th, thanks to Tommy for helping coordinate this, on October 28th, it's a Monday. The Watkins football team will be here at about 5:30 to change the sign here on Park Road. And then they will come to council sometime in November, they said, after the season, to be recognized by council with a proclamation like we started. So if you are able to attend on Monday the 28th at 5:30, please feel free to.
I thought Mrs. Carter had said something, but I guess not, so.
I told him to bring WD-40 because that thing's rusted up there.
That's a compliment.
It's been on there
That's
for
a
4
compliment.
years.
I know,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
may wanna, you may wanna make it easily changeable, because I have a feeling that we'll be getting that
JB,
on
use
the
it.
back.
Will you be
Velcro.
wearing a jersey at the next council meeting?
I will be wearing the jersey whenever Mr. Hicken can
Sweet.
acquire me a
Awesome.
jersey.
And I think the Watkins sign is brand new, it's never been used, so I don't think it's
No, it's not.
No,
It's not the plastic.
Ouch.
I'll tell you what,
I'm
for a
teasing,
group
I'm
that- for a
teasing.
group that doesn't get any respect, 4 down, come back and have a good game now, let's not.
Jump off.
It was quite disappointed.
I have nothing further, happy to answer any questions from council.
Ouch. All right, anything for Mr. King? Mr. Nicholson?
Thank you, Mayor. We have a number of pieces of legislation on tonight's agenda. 3 resolutions for our ancillary health care, the dental, vision, and life contracts. The premiums remain unchanged from this year, so we got a 0% increase, which is awesome. We didn't need to do a resolution for the health insurance because we signed a 3-year trust agreement with the COECC, so that just renewed this year. Obviously, the 2 ordinances, we have the income tax allocation rates that we set every year in terms of how much goes to debt service, police fund, street fund, and capital improvement fund for 2020, as well as the first reading of the budget ordinance, the actual permanent appropriation ordinance. I think that's all I have.
Any questions from Mr. Nicholson on anything? Thank you, sir. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple highlights from our report. We again experienced a couple more leaks since the last time we met. We had a water main break at 214 Tyler Avenue and a service line failed at 732 Ridgeview Drive. We were able to fix them both. The main break we were able to fix live. No boiler alert, no disruption of service. The service line we replaced with a plastic line, but this off season, usually leak season is when in the winter when things are freezing and thawing. This off season we've had a lot more leaks than normal. Just luck of the draw the way things have fallen. But also wanted to talk about the Main Street, Mill Street water line tie-in. That project went off without a hitch. Actually, I didn't want to say anything the week we were doing it, but I've never dug in Old Town and not had something happen, something cause a problem, and we did not run into any issues. So water line was hooked up and flowing. The street was opened at 8 o'clock on Thursday. So outside of the traffic inconvenience, there was no real hiccups in that project. So that was a good thing. In addition to the report that I put out, we did start the biosolids program for the fall application. AgriSludge came Friday, and again today they're hauling product to the fields. Because of the rain that's coming, we'll probably have to take a day off and then finish hauling the rest of the week and then do the land application portion for the fall. And then that will give us the room to get 6 more months of storage, getting ready for the spring application next year. We also have requested, we used to be on a tri-annual lead and copper sampling program. The EPA has changed some of their restrictions and put almost everybody on an annual sampling program. You can request to go back to triannual. If your numbers are low enough, we never have any detectable lead anywhere, and we have minor amounts of copper that are just normal that are found. They're less than half of the EPA's limit. They analyzed our request and still said that the copper levels alone made it where they want us to continue to do annual sampling. So once we get 5 years, they don't have a threshold, but it looks like they're looking at about 1/3 of what the limit is, since we're below a half. Once we get 5 years below 1/3, we can go back to tri-annual sampling if they approve it. But that was something that's been in the report. I've been waiting for a response back from them, and I finally got that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, I handed out a photograph, an aerial photograph of the wastewater plant, the OWEA 2020 calendar. We submitted this photo of our plant to them to be included in the calendar, and they selected it to be part of the cover collage for the calendar. So it's a statewide agency. That calendar will go out to basically every sewer entity in the state, and Pasta's gonna be on the cover, so I thought that was kinda neat. Just wanted to throw that out there. Outside of that, I don't have anything else. We'd have, happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'd have to say that, I'm glad you had no hiccups down at, Main and Mill.
Yeah.
And that probably was one of the smoothest, I mean, between our electronic board signs and just getting it out there and the internet and all that stuff, that was the perfect storm, you might wanna say. I mean, it was great. I mean, and you got the road back open as quickly as possible. We had good weather. It really did work out perfectly, so kudos to everybody.
I'll pass that along.
Yep, please do. Any other questions for Chris? Thanks, Chris. Alan, what do you got for me?
Thanks, Mayor. Just two updates. One, Oak Meadow Drive, sidewalks are going in this week. With any luck and good weather, we'll do the paving next week, followed by restoration and driveways and such after that, so that's moving along nicely. And then the ramp, all of the paving for the 2018 and the 2019 ramp is complete. All work is complete. We do have savings. We're working through the final details to figure out what those are, but we should have some really good savings between those two projects. Other than that, happy to answer any questions.
So Oak Meadow, saying, you know, we get into October and November-ish, we are gonna get some rainy days, some freezing days, some cold days. Do you still anticipate Oak Meadow being totally paved? And I know I was here for the street committee meeting, and except for maybe buttoning up and some grading and reseeding, you feel that's gonna be a good road to drive on through the winter?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
If we continue to have some decent weather to get paving done, yes.
Okay. Anything for Alan? Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing to highlight from my report is that we still need to select a day and time for the comprehensive plan workshop that council requested at the September 16th meeting. So I just wanted to put that out there. Aside from anything else, or aside from that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I just have a quick comment. Thanks for, you know, Jack and I attended the Morksey Sustainability Summit. And there were some really great speakers there this year. And in fact, I was amazed to hear that the keynote speaker actually was applauding it. And this is nothing against Mr. Walters' protest on the moratorium. Nothing in any way, Andy, okay? But
There's plenty of people that aren't, so
Sure,
it goes both ways,
okay.
so.
I
that's
just
fine.
wanted to, you know, just wanted to say that, but I was very surprised that the keynote speaker actually was applauding some of the municipalities and stuff for actually taking that action and making sure that they plan correctly for the future, so that, you know, you don't build something that either is going to sit empty, it's gonna have to be torn down, brings down your values and stuff like that. So it was, I hope to get more of you folks coming in the future to some of these meetings, because they are enlightening. They talk about situations that we are going through as we speak, you know, water issues, you know, sustainability. So it was a good meeting, and I appreciate Jack being there. And he always takes some of the classes, and I take some of the others, so we come back with all kinds of info. So kudos to Jack for helping with sustainability.
I'll pass that along.
Thank you. Lanier.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things I want to highlight. Parks Department has an ordinance on for the first reading, seeking an approval to establish tobacco-free zones in our parks and recreation and athletic areas. Working with the Lincoln County Health Department and partnering with them. Today we have the first reading, and if all goes well, they will be purchasing all of our signs for us, giving us a lot of the marketing tools that we would need to identify and tell the community that we are moving in the right direction to making our parks and our community as healthy as possible. Last thing I would like to highlight is our open house we had last Wednesday, the Parks and Recreation Open House special meeting. We had 14 attendees. Most of the attendees were 40 plus, which was what I needed. We don't have much programming or anything like that for that age group, and I felt that it was a beneficial meeting to have. I gave an overview of our current park system. I gave an overview of our programs, activities, events. Also gave a little background on our history. I gave a PowerPoint out to the majority of you, and I lost time So I'll make sure Mrs. Hayes and Mr. Lee gets that PowerPoint by the end of the night. And outside of that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Lanier? Okay, thank you, sir. Deputy Chief, Mike Bowles.
Don't really have anything to report tonight, Mayor. I do want to say the landscaping does look fantastic. I'm happy that that was done. And, I'm here tonight because it's Bruce's 30th anniversary, and so wish him the best. And any questions that we have of me?
How many do we have total in the PCPAA or the Citizens Police Academy group? I think there's 15 or 20 in that
There's
group.
15 or 20. I couldn't give you an exact number, but it's one of our larger classes.
Really good group, and of course they're using the training center also, and I think they've got 3 meetings under the belt so far. So they'll be helping us with Shop with a Cop and some other things, community events, cookie walk and stuff like that. So anything for Mike?
Just very quick, again, thanks to the PD for last week and a quick response on at my place, which turned out to be a false alarm, but considering what happens in my neighborhood sometimes, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I appreciate that, and it turned out to be a bad sensor that I had to replace. So,
Absolutely.
it's good.
False alarms are the best kind.
I know, yes, thank you.
Bad sensor beats a bad guy, right?
Yes.
Yep. Anything else for Deputy Chief? Thank you, sir, for coming tonight. Committee chair reports. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we had a street committee meeting tonight, a couple, outside of the typical discussion of ramp and things like that, we did have a couple of, resident issues that I just wanted to bring to the council's attention, should you hear about this, outside of the meeting. One is, Jefferson Park Drive, apparently when constructed, it's the small, like, little business park, on Broad, it was just down, to the west, yeah.
Yep.
So, essentially, it, after constructed, it was just never dedicated, or however you put it, to the city. So, the city never really officially took over, the maintenance of the roadway, which is relatively short. It's not a very long roadway. And it's starting to have some issues. And so we had discussion tonight about, you know, what the steps were and bringing that into the fold under city services. So that is something that, Alan is looking into, and we're gonna find out exactly, you know, if we can look at the condition of the road and what the cost would be to, bring it to repair and then bring it back under the care of the city. So that's the first one. The next one is, try to stay out of the swear jar. 180 Vine Street apparently has had some flooding issues in the basement. And I'm gonna do my layman's description of this. City tile runs underneath it, and apparently it runs under several of the houses and residents in that area. Well, this particular home is owned by Jim Helfrich. It's something that he rents out to someone. And so essentially is demanding that we pay $500, just an arbitrary $500 number for the 3 floodings he says that have taken place in this house and the damages, and that we repair it immediately or he'll back us up and flood it out onto the street. That's the short and dirty, right?
It's not specifically a city tile, it's not an easement, it was there prior to the house being built.
Okay.
It's like a
So
field
it's
tile, right?
A field tile that was built
There
on
you
top
go.
of it. Does
Am I allowed to
drain
interject my
erosion.
thoughts?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Well, you get in the swear jar, Susie? So, I mean, but basically, so this resident who is renting this home has, you know, probably suffered damage to some of her property and the inconvenience in her house of having water in her basement, which is obviously a concern to council, especially if this is an ongoing issue, which would ultimately be something that we had to take care of and is going to impact other areas. Our ultimate plan is to try to look at this as we would any other flooding issue in the city, you know, any drainage problems or water, and kind of look at the list of projects we have and see where it falls in priority. The long-term fix is very, very expensive, which is tile down the entire roadway, right, out to,
It appears that way, yes, to the river.
so, we have to do some further digging and see exactly what we're going to, you know, how we're gonna move forward with it, just like we would any other issue. In the meantime, the demands of payment and immediate are whatever. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, it's essentially extortion, because it will cause us, if he stops the water on his property, it will back up onto the roadway and cause us a great deal of problems for other areas. But we'll do everything we can in the immediate to get it done, but I don't see any sense in us paying arbitrary amounts of money for something that we don't have any.
Yeah, Mrs. Carter, I want to put a point of order. I think that this is, throw this out here, I think this is getting in towards potential litigation, and it might be more appropriate for an executive session than for discussion out here amongst everybody, because this gentleman is threatening us with a lawsuit, as I recall, or he's making demands. So I just throw that out there.
Okay. Yeah, he hasn't threatened us with litigation on this in particular. But there is that issue, and there is a resident there, so that's, you know, the drainage is something we have to look at there. 2020 ramp items are being finalized. It will be probably when, the list we discussed tonight is essentially the last one, right?
Yes.
Okay, so those are looking really good. The budget's looking great. 19 ramp is wrapping up. Yes?
We're just waiting on final numbers.
Final numbers, so, I mean, everything else is on track. There's really nothing new on the agenda that we haven't went over in the past, except for the intersection assessment report is now not expected until early November. So we're anxiously awaiting that report. Any questions?
I do actually agree with Todd that the litigation issue is out there, but I have a question for Alan on that. Have we looked downstream to see, is this something that has just happened, or is this something that, I mean, is there anything we can look at downstream off-site that might help improve?
We're gonna look into it, so basically I've known about this for about 2 months, was the initial report. We got a camera crew and a locate crew out there to find where the tile was. I talked a little bit about that, brought it to street committee, so we're gonna look at different options, see what's available, haven't really looked into it too much.
Got it, thanks.
That's it.
Thank you. Any other committee chair reports? Yes, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, the utility committee also had a meeting. It would not require anything close to the swear jar. We first talked about new construction specifications. These are specifications that the city is looking at adopting for construction that's going to be done in the city. I'll be honest with council, they read like stereo instructions. Chris highlighted 4 that he thought were the big ones. Some of them are very simple, like, I don't know, steps in a manhole should be polyvinyl, probably propylene instead of aluminum. All right, so, you know, we Andy and I were present for the meeting. We looked at them. We're gonna take a little bit of time to look over the whole set. The next utility committee meeting, we would approve them. And if we approve them and they're going to council the same night, we'll see that council gets a list of them. To be honest with you, I just think it would help if council sees them and knows that Chris is trying to implement some, you know, all this new stuff. If you're like me, you have no idea whether polypropylene is the most effective way to put steps in a sewer manhole, so I just trust the experts and I do that a lot. And so I was grateful for his presentation on that. He also gave us a quick update on our NPDES corrective action permit from EPA. If you remember, council sent a letter and we asked for some loosening of what the EPA suggested our NPDES permit would be, specifically to I&I, which is water that gets into your sewer system via rain and groundwater, I guess for lack of a better term. And what it boils down to is we've got about 15 months from November 1st to develop a plan, and 9 months after that to get going on the plan. What the EPA has sent back, frankly, is not super difficult, or it's very vague, I guess, so we might be able to get by with not doing a bunch of stuff. To remind council, we have already let the RFQ for that, and the first company was already discarded. RFQs are different than RFPs. So we'll be looking at whether or not the second company in line, and I forgot the name of it, GPD Group, would be able to meet those qualifications, but we'll be moving forward. If you remember, when we first asked for this, either Chris or I said in an open council session, sometimes be careful when you ask the EPA to give you a break, because then you have to, if they do it, then you gotta do it. You gotta do what you asked for. In this case, we kind of caught a double break, because they not only agreed to loosen the time restriction and some of the I&I requirements, but they kind of made the goal a little vague, so that's good. The final thing that we had a long discussion about was Scenic View Estates. Again, to refresh council's memory, Scenic View Estates is the estates that are immediately behind Kroger, connect through Beechwood Trails. Previously, the utility committee had identified 11, if you remember, so it's broken into 3 groups. The company, the developer wanted to force main everything, all the different properties. We met with them and via Chris and Scott, we provided constant updates to them. What we ultimately decided was if you think of 3 pods of 19 to 21 houses in a heavily wooded area, nice houses. The one pod of 19 houses that was closest to the city, we said, no, you should gravity feed those. The other 2 you can force main, but we have lots of requirements that go with that. And the utility committee came up with a whole long list of 11 requirements and presented them to the developer. The developer said, okay. So Scott and Chris and Brian Zetz put together some several legal, a legal document or legal language that incorporated all of those 11 points. It'll now go back to planning and zoning, where they will incorporate that language into a change of plan. That sound right, Scott?
That's correct.
Wow. So it would then come back to council. We have those 11 points, and we have Brian Zetz's language, if council would like to see it ahead of time. I think the utility committee represented council quite well on it, so I'm sure Andy or I or Tommy, any one of us, would be willing to answer any questions from council, either now or privately, if you had some questions about it. And that would end my, I'll open it up for any questions on any one of those items.
You nailed it. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yes. So Jamie and I talked briefly before the meeting about having an additional discussion on the budget. We don't know if we want to do that as a workshop or as doing something prior to a council meeting. We've got a couple more. So I'm going to just put that out for council discussion to see what the pleasure of council is in that regard. If there is any desire to do that.
Anybody up for another workshop? Tommy?
I'm good. I'm good for whatever.
Suzanne?
I'm good.
Andy?
I think it's worthwhile. but, I don't wanna spend time that other people don't want to. Obviously, there's several questions in here that I've got either for tonight or for a workshop, either one. So I would say yes for my vote.
Okay. I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I think too that, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but I'd like to go through it and answer, because I have so many, or sometimes I don't, go meet with Jamie and get those questions answered prior to council, so that's my preference, but that doesn't mean that's everybody else's.
Suzanne, I guess I wanted to get it.
I usually ask my questions
Okay.
ahead of time,
All right.
so I'll text you, so.
Mr. Barstow?
Yeah, typically I talk to Jamie if I have questions or issues, so that's how I do it.
Mr. Powell?
Yeah, if I don't know if I need a workshop.
Mrs. Carter?
I find the second one helpful. When we have the little, finally get the little booklet in this form, it's easier for me to digest. And I know in the past, we've had a second one and had the opportunity to go through this, and I think it makes the budget process a little easier when we're voting for the budget. I personally don't love marathon council meetings, so if we did it on an off Monday, I would be down for that. So we didn't have to, spend the entire night here, but I'll do whatever majority rules with.
Mr. Hicken?
I find them both beneficial. I do part of the way Tommy does and part of the way Andy does, so I would say yes. If we did it next week, Mrs. Carter could be here for the changing of the sign, out front. But in the end, I think that I agree with Mel. The second meeting always helps me a little bit. For me, it's never a marathon because I come with like 5 questions. They're pretty much winnowed down, but I sometimes like to hear other people's questions. So I'm a yes for if possible.
Well, our first one, I think, was an hour and a half, and that was some really good information. I don't see why the second one would have to be, like you said, a marathon, but I think I would kind of like to.
October 28th?
Yep, October 28th. Is that okay with everybody? It's a Monday night. Everybody check and see and let me know here.
Is there any, I'm out of town, I'll get back into town, but I probably won't get here until 6. I mean, can we do it at like a 6 o'clock meeting rather than like an early one, like a 4 o'clock?
They have
We've got the sign, changing of the sign at 5:30.
So maybe after that?
So 6 o'clock.
Would that be okay?
Is that okay with everybody?
Is that enough time? I've never participated in this, so.
Yeah, it's
been
take the sign down, put the sign up, take some pictures, and yep.
Okay.
Okay, so October 28th, 6 p.m. Council Chambers sets as a special council meeting with 3 members who are asking for that, so we'll schedule that.
Kathy, you take care of that?
Yes, all I need is a letter or an email from someone
Yeah,
stating.
three council members requested, so I'll send you an email, Kathy. Okay, thanks.
Very good. Any other committee chair reports? Very good. Unfinished business. Ordinance 2019-4347 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Powell. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Ordinance 2019-4347, this is the third reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019.
Discussion? Mr.
Mayor-
Barstow?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 2019-4347.
Got a motion to adopt?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion? And roll.
Powell?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Walther?
Yes.
43-447 passes. Ordinance 2019-4348 for a second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Carter.
for the record, because of my employment with Licking Heights Local School District, I'm recusing myself from any discussion on 2019-4348.
Let the record show that. Did I get 2 motions here?
I think you did.
Okay.
I had nothing.
I got nothing, okay.
No, I saw.
I need a motion
So move.
for reading. Mr. Hicken?
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell. Kathy, when you're ready. Second reading.
Ordinance 2019-4348. This is the second reading. An ordinance approving a memorandum of understanding with the Licking Heights Local School District in connection with possible property tax exemptions in the Pataskla Corporate Park as expressed in the attached Exhibit A.
Discussion? Okay, ordinance 2019-4349 for a second reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Hayes.
because of employment, I too need to recuse myself from the second reading of the Southwest Licking.
Okay, let the record reflect that Mrs. Hayes is recusing herself. Second reading, need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Powell,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading.
Ordinance 2019-4349. This is the second reading. An ordinance approving a memorandum of understanding with the Southwest Licking Local School District in connection with possible property tax exemptions in the Pataskla Corporate Park as expressed in the attached Exhibit A.
Discussion? Ordinance 2019-4350 for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Powell,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading, please.
Ordinance 2019-4350. This is the second reading. An ordinance amending Section 171.03, imposition of tax of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskla.
Discussion? Okay, resolution of new business. Ordinance 2019-4351 for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Hicken, seconded by Mr. Powell. Kathy, when you're ready, first reading.
Ordinance 2019-4351. This is the first reading. An ordinance creating, establishing, and adopting Section 955.14, prohibiting tobacco use in all recreational areas of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskla.
Discussion? Ordinance 2019-4352 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Powell,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Hicken. Kathy, when you're ready, first reading.
Ordinance 2019-4352. This is the first reading. An ordinance amending Ordinance 2018-4326, establishing the allocation of income tax collections received by the city of Pataskla pursuant to Ordinance 2010-3959.
Discussion? Ordinance 2019-4353 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Powell,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Carter. Kathy, when you're ready, first reading, please.
Ordinance 2019-4353. This is the first reading. An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Pataskla, state of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, and to authorize approved interfund transfers.
Discussion? On to resolutions. Resolution 2019-071, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Delta Dental for the purpose of providing employee and dependent dental insurance benefits.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-072, resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with the Vision Service Plan for the purpose of providing employee and dependent vision insurance benefits.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstu, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-073, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with The Standard for the purpose of providing employee and dependent life insurance benefits.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
On to motions. Motion directing the city administrators Administration to advertise a request for qualifications for city law director services.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow and seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Motion passes. Motion directing the city administration to advertise a request for qualifications for general engineering services.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Motion passes. And Mr. King, both these entities know that this is just part of the procedure, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other motions
Yeah,
tonight?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mayor.
Yeah.
So I have a motion that we nominate and approve Donald Berkey to the Oak Meadow Drive Sidewalk Assessment Equalization Board.
I have a motion on the
Second.
floor, seconded by Mr. Powell. Discussion? Yes, sir.
Have we I don't remember if we had previously nominated the other two or not.
We're getting there.
We're gonna do each one individually?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It'll become apparent in a moment why we're doing it.
Then I'll stop talking.
That's okay.
Okay, I have a motion, and it was seconded, and we had discussion, and we have roll, please.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Motion passes, and yes, sir.
Thank you. I have a motion to place Aaron Epley on the Oak Meadow Drive Sidewalk Assessment Equalization Board.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell. Discussion? And roll.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Lee,
Recuse.
Carter,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we place Emily Butler on the Oak Meadow Drive Sidewalk Assessment Equalization Board.
That was Emily Butler.
Yes.
Okay. Got a motion and a second by Mr. Hicken, I believe. Discussion? And roll.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, so we have our board, and I would ask the administration to get, they're anxious. I know I work with Ms. Butler's husband, I see him at the courthouse a lot, and he's, hey, what's going on? So they're ready to go.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll get a
great.
meeting scheduled,
Awesome.
get them
Awesome.
organized, and then
Okay.
also to hear the
Okay.
projection.
Any other motions tonight? Okay, Mr. Powell?
Any motions regarding the Southwest Licking Community Water Sewer District Representative?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Rob Platt to the Southwest Licking Water and Sewer Board.
Motion by Mr. Lee, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hayes. Kathy? Discussion first? Alright, Kathy, roll.
Barstow,
I'm recusing myself from this discussion. Thank you.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
No.
Walter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. As with the previous, I'm going to ask if we have any motions for many of our applicants to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Charlie Davis to the Planning and Zoning Board.
I have a motion for Charles Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell. Any discussion on that?
As I said before, I think everybody's good. I had it narrowed down, so I'll be voting. I looked at everybody and I knew the ones that I would vote yes on. I guess I'll just tell you right now that this is one of the ones I said I would vote yes on, so since it's the first one down the pipe, yeah, you'll hear my vote in a second.
Any other discussion on this nomination, Mr. Walther?
How many board spots are we looking to?
I believe this is one vacancy, this is Mr. Ripley's.
This is Mr. Ripley's
Yes.
replacement, and then the next two will be handled at another time with another posting?
Yes,
Correct.
we
Just
wanted
making
to, yeah, we wanted to keep that kind of clean so we didn't have people getting confused of what they were applying for. It's a little bit more work, but I think it keeps it cleaner for the residents.
Just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah,
clear on what we're
Andy,
doing.
that's an excellent point. We talked about that in leadership, Mr. King.
And this position that we're considering tonight has 2 years left on the term.
I would also point out that in light of the previous, the vote just taken, we are probably going to have a position open on planning and zoning as well. Pending,
Yeah, I did it again.
Sorry. Pending the opinion from Mr. Zales.
Okay, any other discussion on Mr. Davis' nominations? Okay, Kathy, call the roll, please, on this.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes?
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes. And so that nomination passes, so Mr. Davis is a new member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Just a thing on folks who came down and applied and didn't get nominated, come back again. Don't take it personally, it's not personal. Come back again and apply. We had very good applications, great applicants, good, strong resumes, so don't drop out.
And I believe, Mr. King said you're gonna put out the advertisement for the next 2 open positions
Those will be posted tomorrow.
tomorrow, so right away you'll have another opportunity to.
Absolutely.
Will the people that have interviewed tonight, will they be required to come back in for an interview?
Yes.
Since it'll be so soon after, I mean, I'm just thinking of their time and such. We asked the questions that we wanted to ask, at least, I think. I guess,
Mr. Walter brings a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I was just thinking about coming back in. What's council's pleasure on if someone who put their, not only put their application in, but came in and interviewed? Because we had some folks who put in applications, but were not, for whatever reason, were not here. My view would be is if you came for planning and zoning and you interviewed, I would think you would not have to come back so soon to re-interview. Ms. Carter?
I agree. I think as long as they apply again with the application deadline, so put in their letter, resume again, but the individuals who are here and interviewed would not need to interview a second time.
That's a good point. So folks, if you put an application for this vacancy and you came in and interviewed, you don't need to come back and interview, but you do need to reapply, so we know that you are interested in it again. If you want to, and if you want to come and interview, if you had such a great time this evening, listening to city council, and you just want to get more of this, come back and knock yourselves out, because it just gets too exciting. Yes, Mr. Matt. Mr. Wall.
just one more item to offer. Is there any chance that Kathy can reach out to them to tell them that while they did not get appointed to this one position, that if they choose to place their resumes back in for the next 2 positions, that they wouldn't have to come to interview? Can we, I see Mr. Kendall is not here.
Yeah, I
He
think
was
he
a
would.
person interviewed.
Kathy-
Unless we reach out to him and tell him, he won't do
Kathy,
that.
can you have enough contact information from Mr. Kendall?
Yes.
So people who interviewed were Mr. Bush was not here, Mr. Kendall interviewed, and Mr. Hubble interviewed.
Correct.
Other applicants were Mr. Edwards and the mysterious
Stephen.
I can't find that piece of paper now.
The Edge.
Edge. So those folks would have to come and interview if they're interested. Kathy, is that cool?
Yes.
Is that okay? You can do that? Okay, thank you very much. That's good discussion. Thanks, Mr. Walker, for bringing that up. Anything else on these? Okay, I'm turning back over to the mayor. Thanks, Mayor.
So I'm looking for a motion to appoint Charles M. Davis as an alternate to the Licking County Transit Board.
Second.
Who was my first one, Mr. Hicken? Thank you, Mr. Hicken, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll.
Hicken,
Yes?
Lee,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes?
Powell,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Any other motions tonight? Okay, additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Yes, sir. I'll just need your name and address one more time and.
Ben Hubble, 1736 Keela Drive, Pasco, Ohio. On the second reading of ordinance 2019-4350 in regards to the imposition of tax, is this in regards to income tax?
Yes.
For my own question, is the resolution or the ordinance available? I noticed that you, like in the other handout, you read the ordinances, but 4350 wasn't in that handout. So, just one real quick, I know everybody's been here a while. I, as a citizen that lives in Pataskala and works in Dublin, Ohio, I heard that the income tax was being considered to be raised 0.5% to 1.5%. No credit is currently given to people that work in a different city but live here in Pataskala. So I'm paying 2% to Dublin, 1% to Pataskala, that's 3%. Talking about raising another 0.5%, that's 3.5% for me. Did a little research, real quick. So looking at the RITA website, there's 360 municipalities listed there. Trying to pull up my notes, my phone cut me off here, but basically the vast majority, not vast majority, 60% provide a credit. Of the 40% that don't provide a credit, only 36 have an income tax higher than 1%. So Pataskala would be one of 37 municipalities out of 360 that's listed on the RITA website that charge more than 1% income tax but don't provide a credit to people working outside of the city. So please take that into consideration for everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak tonight? All right, we'll go around the room. We'll start with Mr. Lee.
I've got nothing tonight.
Mrs. Hayes.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Walter.
I don't have anything, thanks.
Mr. Fill-in for Mr. Zetz.
No, Mayor.
Anything? Nothing?
Thank you.
Aw. Well, he is filling in for Mr. Zetz.
You are a
That
lot.
wasn't Sam. Yes, you, yeah. Luckily, Mr. Hicken, he knows that he is, you are the law director. I'll say, don't jump into a motion to adjourn, yet. Let me get to you if you would. Mr. Barstow?
Yeah, a couple things. You know, to Mr. Hubble's point about the income tax, look, I'm like most people here in Pataskala. I work outside the city, so I pay 2.5% to a combination of Columbus and Whitehall. I also have to pay some on 1.75% to Newark. I don't get any credit for any of those, so I hear you that those folks who say that, it's a lot of people, and that's the problem. Because we're a bedroom community, if we gave credit, almost everyone has a higher tax rate. If we gave credit, then that starts having a real negative impact on our own. It's a worthwhile idea. I'm gonna talk to, that's one thing I'm gonna talk to Amy about the potential financial impact, but I certainly sympathize because I have to do it myself. I'm not sure if there's a good solution for that. Thanks. But I appreciate good folks bringing that up. It's a good point. Thank you.
I'll just do it now. Thanks, Ben, for your interest in the city and applying. Hope you'll keep applying. Congratulations, Mr. Davis. And congratulations, Mr. Platt. Thanks for enduring the meeting tonight. Wasn't that bad. Mr. Powell, what do you got?
Same thing, congrats, Mr. Platt. Mr. Davis, you wanted to get involved, now you got double duty. Congratulations.
Mrs. Carter.
I just say it's great to see, some fresh applicants, fresh perspectives, and I'm excited to have some new faces in the mix, and I encourage those folks to please put your resumes and letters of interest in again, for the upcoming positions that we'll have available. The income tax thing is something that I hear often when I talk to people. And unfortunately for us, without a large income tax generator in the city, it would cost us more to reciprocate than it would to collect, so we might as well not even have an income tax. So we are in that unfortunate in-between where we're waiting for that one big break where we will get it. We will have a large income tax generator employment in the city. But with that tight spot, things are growing, so we still have more streets to take care of, larger area to police. You know, we have to stay, competitive with our police force, so we have some challenges in that area. So the residents, I understand those frustrations, and I just ask that, patience be given and really research it before, it will be on the ballot, so it's not, we don't get to make that decision arbitrarily. And that would be something that would be a vote. So, please come and ask all the questions and do your research before that vote comes along. That's all I have.
Mr. Hicken, round us out there, buddy.
Not that, enough people haven't spoken about it, but I will also say, I believe that in the many iterations of attempts by the city to get an income tax, they tried that, and it was defeated.
Several times.
Yeah, little historical perspective, so, but we hear you, and good input. I thought good questions by everybody that interviewed tonight. I wanna say, thanks to Alan and the street department for getting on a drainage issue on Broadway. For those of you who sometimes travel through the downtown Old Village, there's a gingerbread looking house that's red with the front porch ripped off it that has, that had water running into their basement because the city or somebody had paved over the catch basin at the intersection of the street. That section of the village does not have curb and gutter. I had gone out to tell the people that it might be a little bit longer before something got done, and when I pulled up, she was there, and it was already done. So she told me that that house sat originally where Pataskala Elementary is, and it was moved. It's on the Register of Historic Places, and although right now it's kind of in a shambles, she's working very hard to fix it. She has to meet certain qualifications, but it's one of the few examples of neo-Gothic revivalist architecture on this side of the Appalachian Mountains. So, who knew? And all right, if you Google it, you're going to find out that I just threw a bunch of words together. But it is. So thanks to them for doing it. It is.
I was so impressed.
Yeah, sorry about that. Love getting called out like that. The third grade students were awesome. Thank you so much to the police department for getting them through. It was always right at the end of the presentation, and I'd look at them and I'd say, and now we got a treat because the entire deputy chief of the whole police is right there. And then Chief Bowles would come in and say, "Oh, who wants to go see the jail?" They ran out of here like I was chasing them with a knife because they wanted to see the holding cells. So that was very good. The last thing was, I don't believe, and this is again kind of directed to you, Chief. I was at the football game Friday night. Outcome aside, I didn't see. I thought the Licking Heights did a very good job of controlling things. I know there were extra cops there. I didn't see any fights. It's the only football game I've ever gone home from smelling like talcum powder. And if you saw the visiting side, you'll know why. Those kids must have had 700 pounds of talcum powder.
Oh, for whiteout night?
Yeah, for a whiteout. But I thought, yeah, it might have caused my cough. I don't know, or future injuries, if you believe the television. Do you still don't want me to?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second by Mr. Powell. Discussion and roll.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter. Yes. Walter.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Barstow.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Bye.
I saw one of your resource guys. It wasn't a cop. It was a kid.